The great palace of Zarithia stood tall and glowing, its walls carved from living crystal that reflected 1,000 shades of blue and silver. The people of the empire gathered in the central hall for an event that happened only once in a lifetime, the great choosing ceremony. It was the day when suitors from across the stars came to offer themselves to the royal bloodline. It was a day of pride, a day of honor, and a day when alliances were forged with marriage bonds. At the center of the hall stood Princess Elira, daughter of the Empress. She wore a long silver robe, her crown resting lightly on her head. Her golden eyes, sharp and intelligent, tried to hide the storm within her heart. She had known this day would come, and she had feared it for years. For unlike other royal daughters, Elira was not considered perfect. She had been born with one arm smaller and weaker than the other, and her wings, those proud feathered wings that marked her people as rulers of the skies, were incomplete. One wing stretched wide and strong, the other hung bent and weak. In a warrior society like Zarithia, where strength and perfection meant everything, her condition was seen as a flaw, a stain on her bloodline. The Empress had declared the choosing must go forward. She had promised her daughter would find a suitor. But Elira knew the truth. She had heard the whispers. She is broken. She cannot bear strong children. Her bloodline is cursed. Still she stood tall, refusing to bow her head. She was a princess, and no shame would take that from her. The herald struck the crystal floor with his staff. Let the suitors present themselves. One by one, noble warriors from the most powerful houses of Zarithia stepped forward. Each was taller, stronger, and prouder than the last. Each had come wearing armor polished to shine like stars. They looked at Elira, at her bent wing, at her thin arm, and each one stepped back. The first bowed politely. "Forgive me, great Empress, but I must withdraw. My family seeks only strength." The second laughed openly. "A cripple cannot rule beside me. My house deserves more." The third did not even speak. He simply turned and walked away, his silence an insult louder than any words. Elira's chest tightened with every rejection. She tried to hold her chin high, but her heart ached. Was she truly so worthless in their eyes? Around her the courtiers whispered, their voices like knives. "She will be the first princess unchosen. The Empress hides her shame. Better she be given to a lesser species than disgrace the throne." The Empress's golden crown shimmered under the crystal light, but her face was cold as stone. Her anger was hidden, but Elira could feel it. Her mother wanted to protect her, but she could not silence the cruel truth. No noble warrior wanted a broken princess. The last Zarithian suitor stepped forward, a prince from the house of Kareth. He was tall, with wings like steel and eyes like burning fire. The crowd leaned forward. Surely he would accept. He looked at Elira once, then sneered. "I will not waste my blood on weakness." He turned his back on her. The hall filled with gasps. Elira's hands trembled at her sides. Every suitor had rejected her. The choosing was over. She was unclaimed. Silence hung heavy in the great hall. The Empress closed her eyes, humiliated before her people. Elira wanted to disappear. She felt like glass, cracked and ready to shatter. Then, a sound broke the silence. Boots. Heavy boots, not the light steps of Zarithian warriors. The crowd turned in confusion. At the back of the hall, standing alone in simple black uniform, was a man. He was not Zarithian. He was not noble. He was not even alien in their grand eyes. He was human. His name was Captain Marcus Hale, envoy of Earth. He had come as a diplomat, a guest with no expectation to take part in the choosing. Yet here he was, walking through the crowd with calm steps, his dark eyes fixed on the princess. Whispers erupted. "A human? He dares approach the throne? This is blasphemy." Marcus ignored them. He stopped before Elira, bowed his head deeply, and then raised his voice so all could hear. His words cut through the noise like a blade. "Princess Elira, will you breed with me?" The hall froze. Every noble, every warrior, every courtier stared in shock. The Empress's eyes widened, her lips parting in disbelief. Elira herself gasped, her heart pounding in her chest. Did she hear correctly? Had this human, a species often mocked as weak and primitive, just asked to claim her when all others had refused? The hall erupted. This is an insult. Humans are beneath us. Throw him out. But Marcus stood firm. His voice was steady, his eyes unwavering. I speak not as a conqueror, not as a suitor of power, but as a man who sees worth beyond what others call flaw. On earth, strength is not in perfect bodies, but in spirit, in will, in the fire that refuses to die. I see that fire in her. His words hung in the air, simple yet powerful. Elira's chest rose and fell quickly. She had been ignored, mocked, rejected. But this man, this outsider, saw her, not her weakness, not her scars, her. The Empress stood from her throne, her voice cold but curious. Human, do you know what you ask? To wed a princess of Zarithia is to take on the weight of an empire. You have no house, no wings, no strength of our kind. Why should you be worthy? Marcus met her gaze without fear. Because I do not need wings to stand tall. Because I do not need alien blood to fight for her. I ask not for power. I ask to stand at her side if she will have me. The hall buzzed with outrage, but Elira could not hear them. Her world had narrowed to the human before her. His words struck deep, warming a part of her heart she thought was long dead. Could it be true? Could someone truly see her worth? The Empress raised her hand for silence. Her voice rang clear. Then you will prove it. If you wish to claim what no Zarithian dared, you must face the trial of proving. Survive, and you may stand beside her. Fail, and you will die. Gasps filled the chamber. The trial of proving was a deadly test, designed only for Zarithian warriors. For a human, it was almost certain death. Marcus did not flinch. His answer came quickly, his tone steady. If I must fight the galaxy itself to earn her hand, then so be it. The court erupted again, some in laughter, others in outrage. But Marcus stood tall, his eyes never leaving Elira's. The great hall of Zarithia was still buzzing from the shock of Marcus Hale's words. The human had dared to ask Princess Elira for her hand, a thing no Zarithian suitor had even dreamed of. The courtiers whispered and shook their heads, and the Empress sat stiffly on her throne, her golden crown reflecting the light of the crystal walls. She had issued a challenge, the trial of proving. Only if Marcus survived would he earn the right to stand beside the princess. Otherwise, his body would become nothing more than a warning to all outsiders. Marcus's dark eyes remained steady, and Elira felt a strange mixture of admiration and worry. The trial of proving was no ordinary test. It was designed to push the strongest warriors to the brink of death. He was human, and humans were considered weak compared to Zarithians. The odds seemed impossible. Yet Marcus did not flinch. The Empress spoke, her voice cold and sharp. The trial begins at dawn. You will face beasts bred for combat, terrains that will crush your body, and challenges that will test your mind and courage. Survive, and you may claim the princess. Fail, and you will die. Do you accept, human? Marcus inclined his head, his voice calm and clear. I accept. The hall erupted with laughter. A human? Accepting the trial? One noble sneered. He will die before sunrise, but Marcus ignored them. He only turned to Elira. Do you wish me to succeed? He asked quietly. His tone was gentle, and for the first time Elira felt a warmth she had never known. She nodded, barely able to speak. I do, she whispered. The next morning, before the sun rose, the trial grounds were alive with noise. Zarithians, warriors, and nobles had gathered to witness the human's attempt. The arena was a sprawling landscape of dangers, jagged cliffs, fire pits, venomous beasts, and mechanical traps that had claimed the lives of many warriors. Elira stood on the viewing platform, her wings folded tightly behind her back, her golden eyes wide. She clenched her hands and prayed silently. The Empress raised her hand, and a booming voice echoed through the arena. Begin! Marcus took his first steps into the trial grounds. Immediately, a pack of razor beasts leaped from the shadows, teeth sharp enough to pierce armor. Zarithians would rely on their strength to crush the beasts in one blow. Marcus, human and lighter than any Zerithian, had to think differently. He rolled to the side, dodging the snapping jaws, grabbed a jagged rock and used it to knock one beast off balance. He ran, ducked, and jumped, his movements fast and precise. The crowd gasped. "How does he survive?" one noble whispered. The beast snarled and lunged again, but Marcus stayed calm. He used the environment to his advantage, making the beasts stumble into traps they had not been trained to avoid. Slowly he moved deeper into the trial grounds, his breath steady, his mind sharp. Meanwhile, Illyra felt her heart pounding. She had watched countless warriors attempt this trial, and none had survived without injury. Yet Marcus, fragile by Zerithian standards, moved like a shadow through death itself. For the first time she allowed herself to hope. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher and the trial grew more dangerous. Marcus faced the gravity storm, an artificial phenomenon that twisted the air and crushed anything unprepared. Zerithians used their wings and strength to stabilize themselves. Marcus had no wings. He focused, finding the currents, using his hands and feet to cling to the jagged walls. When a massive gust knocked him back, he rolled and landed, scraping his shoulder but alive. The crowd whispered again. "He survives?" Finally, the last stage of the trial appeared. A massive chasm filled with spiked vines and fire pits. Across it lay the flag of the Empress, the symbol of victory. Every Zerithian warrior who attempted the trial had failed at this final test. The gap was wide, impossible for a human to cross. Marcus crouched at the edge, looking at the deadly terrain. His muscles ached, his skin burned, and his mind screamed to stop. But he remembered Illyra's eyes. He remembered the fire in them, the fire that had never died despite every insult, every rejection. "I will not fail her," he muttered to himself. He ran, leaping from rock to rock, swinging from vines, dodging fire, and landing finally on the opposite side with a heavy thud. The crowd fell silent. He had done the impossible. Illyra gasped and covered her mouth with her hands. She could not believe what she had seen. The human she had only met a day ago had survived a trial meant to kill the strongest of her people. The Empress stood, her eyes narrowed. She had underestimated him. "Human," she said slowly, "you survive where many Zerithians have failed. But strength alone is not enough to win a princess. You must prove your mind, your loyalty, your heart. Only then will you be worthy." Marcus bowed low, still catching his breath. "I will do whatever is required, Your Majesty." Days passed and the trials continued. Marcus faced riddles of logic, puzzles designed to confuse, tests of loyalty where he had to choose between personal safety and helping others, and battles against opponents trained in strategy and combat from birth. In every challenge, Marcus relied not on strength but on his intelligence, his quick thinking, and his determination. Illyra watched each trial in awe. The human seemed to grow stronger with each test, his courage unshakable. For the first time, she did not feel shame about her own body or her wings. She realized that strength came in many forms, not just in muscle or wingspan. One evening, after a particularly dangerous trial, Marcus returned to her platform. His uniform was torn, his face and hands scratched and bloodied, but his eyes still shone with determination. He smiled faintly at her. "You feared for me?" he asked quietly. She said, struggling. She wanted to tell him that she admired him, that she trusted him, that she had never felt seen like this before. But words failed her. She nodded instead. Marcus reached out, not to touch her physically, but in gesture, acknowledging her presence. "I will not fail you," he said softly. "Not now. Not ever." The court was growing restless. Many could not believe that a human had survived the trial of proving, and continued to pass every test. Rumors spread. "The princess's human suitor is unstoppable. The Empress will have no choice but to allow this union." Finally, after a week of trials, Marcus faced the last test, a duel against Zerathor, the greatest warrior of the Empire, known for his speed, strength, and cruelty. The duel was set in a massive arena, surrounded by fire pits with platforms that moved unpredictably. The crowd roared, expecting the human to die quickly. Zerathor charged first, swinging his blade with deadly force. Marcus dodged, rolled, and used his environment to his advantage. Every movement was calculated. He anticipated Zerathor's attacks, striking only when an opening appeared. Hours passed. Sweat poured from him. Muscles screamed in pain, but his mind stayed clear. At last, he disarmed Zerathor with a clever trick, sending the Zerithian warrior tumbling into a pit. Silence fell over the arena. Marcus stood panting, bloodied but victorious. Elira could not hold back her applause. She cheered, tears streaming down her face. The human had survived every test, faced every challenge, and conquered every obstacle. He had done what no Zerithian had ever done. The Empress stepped forward, her face a mixture of anger and grudging respect. "Marcus Hale," she said, her voice loud enough for all to hear, "you have proven your worth. Not just in strength, but in courage, intelligence, and loyalty. You may stand beside the princess if she accepts you." Elira looked at him, her heart full. For the first time she spoke clearly, her voice strong. "I accept you. You have seen me for who I truly am, and I choose you." The crowd erupted in shock and murmurs. A human accepted by a princess of Zerithia. It had never happened before. Some whispered in disbelief, some in admiration. But Elira did not care. She had found someone who saw beyond her scars, beyond her wings, and into her heart. Marcus bowed before her, then extended his hand. "Then we are partners," he said simply. "Yes," she replied, placing her hand in his. "Partners," the Empress watched silently. Though her pride bristled at first, she realized something important. Perhaps humans were not as weak as her people had believed. Perhaps there was more to strength than perfection. The victory over Zerathor was still fresh in the minds of the Zerithian court, yet Marcus Hale knew there was no time to rest. The trial of proving had not yet ended. Surviving the arena was only the beginning. The Empress had made it clear, strength, courage, and cunning were only part of the measure. To truly earn Princess Elira's hand, Marcus would need to endure the final gauntlet. A series of challenges meant to test every human limit, physically, mentally, and morally. The next morning, the arena gates opened to reveal a massive landscape unlike anything Marcus had seen before. It was a mix of natural and artificial hazards, designed to break even the strongest Cerithians. Jagged mountains loomed over scorching deserts. Rivers of molten metal cut through cliffs, and dark forests filled with poisonous creatures stretched endlessly. At the center of the gauntlet stood a massive tower, its peak lost in storm clouds. That tower held the final test, a prize that few had ever reached. Elira watched from above, her heart pounding in her chest. Though Marcus had proven himself already, the trials ahead were unlike any he had faced. The crowd gathered, buzzing with nervous excitement. "He will never survive this," one noble muttered. "Humans are weak." Marcus adjusted his worn armor and stepped into the arena. The ground beneath him shook with the roar of the first challenge. A herd of stone-charged beasts, creatures the size of a small building, with skin as hard as obsidian and horns tipped with molten rock. Zerithians would charge head-on, using brute force to bring them down. Marcus, without such strength, had to think differently. He observed the beasts carefully. They were fast, but followed predictable patterns. Using the jagged terrain, he baited the largest creature toward a cliff edge where it stumbled and fell with a deafening crash. He dodged a horn swipe from another, rolling under it and using its momentum to fling it into a molten river. Step by step, he eliminated the threats, moving steadily toward the tower. The crowd gasped repeatedly at his ingenuity. Meanwhile, Elira could not tear her eyes away. Marcus moved with a combination of intelligence and courage that no Zerithian had ever displayed. She felt pride swelling within her chest, a feeling unfamiliar in her life of shame and rejection. For the first time, she believed that perhaps a human could not only survive, but excel where her own kind would falter. Hours passed, and Marcus faced the next challenge: the shifting labyrinth. Walls taller than any castle twisted and turned, corridors shifting unpredictably. Some paths led to dead ends, while others concealed traps that could pierce armor or release clouds of poisonous gas. Zerithians, relying on strength, often ran blindly and fell into the labyrinth's traps. Marcus relied on observation and memory. He marked the walls with scratches, noting patterns in the labyrinth's movements. When one corridor began to close, he ran backward, sliding under the shifting stones just in time. He reached the center, where a platform awaited. Atop it lay a glowing crystal, the key to opening the path to the tower. But the platform floated above a pit of swirling fire and molten rock. Only those willing to risk everything could reach it. Marcus studied the crystal. He needed it, yet one wrong step would end his life. He took a deep breath and leapt. For a moment he hovered in the air, heart pounding, muscles straining. Then, with a final push of strength and balance, he landed safely on the platform and grabbed the crystal. The crowd erupted in astonishment. A human had done what no Zerithian could. Next came the trial of trust, a test that measured loyalty and courage. Elira watched closely as Marcus entered a dark chamber filled with holographic illusions. Shadows of her appeared, crying for help, screaming, reaching out as if in danger. The test was cruel. Many suitors had been trapped, forced to choose between saving illusions of the princess or completing the trial for themselves. The illusions were designed to break hearts and minds alike. Marcus did not hesitate. He ignored the illusions, focusing instead on the task the trial demanded, to unlock a door using the crystal. Every instinct screamed to rush and save the illusions, yet he knew that true loyalty required wisdom as well as courage. He solved the mechanism and the illusions faded. Though he had not saved the images, he had passed the trial, demonstrating that his judgment could be trusted in the face of emotional torment. Elira's heart ached. The trial had forced him to choose without hesitation, and though he had not saved her illusions, he had proven that he could see clearly where others might falter. She felt a surge of admiration. Perhaps humans, in their simple, stubborn ways, possessed a kind of courage her people could never understand. Finally, Marcus approached the Tower of Elements, the last and most dangerous stage. The tower's base was surrounded by storms of wind and lightning, shifting platforms and swinging blades. To climb it, he would need every skill he had honed over days of trials. Xerithians who had attempted the tower before had fallen countless times, broken by the elements or the traps within. Marcus, lacking wings, faced almost certain death. He began the climb, his movements deliberate. When lightning struck near him, he ducked and rolled, letting the storm pass. When a platform tilted dangerously, he shifted his weight, letting gravity do its work. His hands scraped against sharp edges, his muscles burned and his lungs ached, but he refused to stop. Step by step he ascended, higher and higher, until he was nearly at the top. Elira's wings trembled as she leaned over the edge of the platform. She felt her own breath catch, wishing she could fly down and be with him, to shield him from harm. But she had faith. Marcus had shown her that courage was not about size or strength. It was about will. At last Marcus reached the final platform. There a guardian awaited, a massive mechanical construct shaped like a dragon with claws of steel and fire in its eyes. It was designed to test speed, strategy, and determination. Most warriors relied on brute force, swinging weapons or using wings to strike. Marcus did something unexpected. He studied the construct, noting weaknesses in its movement, predicting where its attacks would land. Using a combination of quick reflexes, clever timing, and simple human tools he had carried, he dismantled the guardian piece by piece. Sparks flew and the crowd watched in awe as the human overcame what even the strongest Xerithians could not. Finally, with the guardian destroyed, Marcus took a deep breath and raised his eyes to the peak of the tower. A glowing beacon awaited him, the signal that he had completed the gauntlet. The crowd fell silent. He had survived the impossible. He had faced every danger, every test, and emerged victorious. Elira could not contain herself. She leaned forward, cheering, her voice breaking with emotion. "Marcus, you did it." Marcus looked up at her and smiled, bloodied and exhausted yet unbroken. "I told you I would not fail," he said softly. The Empress descended from her throne, her expression a mixture of awe and disbelief. "Marcus, hail," she said, her voice echoing in the chamber. "You have accomplished what no Xerithian could. You have proven not only strength, but courage, intelligence, and heart. You may stand beside Princess Elira." The crowd erupted into murmurs of shock and admiration. A human, weak in body by Xerithian standards, had conquered trials meant for warriors of legend. He had defied expectations, broken prejudices, and proven that true strength came from will, ingenuity, and spirit. Elira descended from her platform, moving toward him. Her wings, still imperfect, fluttered slightly with excitement. She reached out, her hand brushing against his. "You have shown me what I never believed I could see," she said, her voice trembling. "That a person can be strong, even if the world says they are weak. That courage can exist beyond perfection." Marcus took her hand, his grip firm yet gentle. "And you," he said, "have shown me what it means to inspire someone, to fight not for glory, but for the one who believes in you. I am nothing without that belief." The Empress watched silently. In that moment she understood something she had never realized. Perhaps humans were not inferior after all. Perhaps in their simplicity they possessed a strength her people had long forgotten. As Marcus and Elira stood together, hand in hand, The court slowly began to whisper. Some scowled, some admired, but all could see the truth. The human had earned his place beside the princess. The galaxy would remember this day, not as the day of a broken princess, but as the day when a human defied the impossible and claimed his rightful place among the stars. Illyra looked at Marcus and smiled. "We still have a long road ahead," she said. "I am ready," Marcus replied, gazing out at the horizon. "Whatever the galaxy throws at us, I will face it with you." The Empire of Zerithia had never known such a scandalous turn. A human had not only survived the brutal trial of proving, but had also won the trust of Princess Illyra. Courtiers whispered behind their hands. Nobles scowled and rivals plotted in dark corridors. To them, the union of a human and a princess was a threat to the natural order of Zerithia. For Marcus Hale and Illyra, however, there was no time for celebration. Though the trials were over, a new challenge had begun, one that was political, dangerous, and deadly. It started with the whispers. At first they were small, rumors that assassins were moving through the city, targeting the human who dared challenge tradition. Then came the reports of houses rallying troops preparing to strike at the palace under the cover of night. Some saw Marcus as a threat to the Empire's hierarchy. Others feared that the princess's choice would inspire rebellion. Illyra sensed the tension as soon as she left the viewing platform. Her wings fluttered nervously, and her golden eyes searched the palace halls. "Marcus," she said, her voice firm, "we are not safe here. They will not let this go quietly." Marcus nodded. He had anticipated danger. "We expected enemies before we even began the trial," he replied. "But I've faced worse odds than this. Together we can protect ourselves and your people." The first attack came at midnight. Shadows moved like water across the palace walls. Marcus had already prepared for this, using Earth-style tactics combined with the alien technology available in Zerithia. He led Illyra to the observation platform overlooking the courtyard, where 5 assassins silently approached, cloaked in dark armor. "Do not fear," he whispered. "Watch and learn." The assassins struck first. Swift and deadly, they aimed for Illyra, believing the human would be no match. But Marcus was ready. He dodged the first attack, catching the blade midair and twisting it out of his opponent's grip. Using the momentum, he threw the assassin into a wall. Illyra gasped. For the first time, she saw Marcus not just as a suitor, but as a fighter, a protector, a human capable of extraordinary courage. The remaining assassins attacked together, a flurry of motion and steel. Marcus adapted quickly. He used their speed against them, dodging and striking with precision. Every move was calculated, every action deliberate. He was faster than they expected, stronger in resolve than they anticipated, and smarter than they imagined. Within minutes, the courtyard was empty of enemies. Only Marcus stood, breathing heavily, victorious. Illyra rushed to his side, her wings unfurling slightly. How did you do that?" she asked, awe in her voice. "I use my brain as much as my fists," Marcus replied. "I knew they would underestimate me because I am human. That mistake was theirs, not mine." The next day brought a different kind of threat. Noble houses loyal to tradition petitioned the Empress, demanding that Marcus be removed from the palace, claiming he had no right to stand beside a princess. Their arguments were steeped in fear and prejudice. A human, they said, would weaken the royal bloodline. The Empress, however, had witnessed the trial. She had seen Marcus survive what no Zerithian had, and she had seen the way he inspired her daughter. She stood before the council, her voice ringing like crystal. "He has proven himself worthy in every possible way," she declared. "Strength is not measured only in muscle or bloodline. Courage, intelligence, and loyalty are strength as well. Marcus Hale will remain here. He will remain with Princess Illyra." The council erupted into shouting. Some nobles left in anger, others in disbelief. A civil war seemed imminent, but Marcus and Illyra were ready. They could feel the tension in the air, thick and dangerous. Illyra turned to Marcus privately, her voice low and urgent. "They will not stop. The nobles will strike at us, and some of them will not hesitate to kill." Marcus nodded. "Then we must prepare. We can't fight every army with swords alone, but with strategy and trust we can protect ourselves and your people." Together they worked tirelessly. Marcus trained Illyra and the palace guards, teaching them techniques that combined human ingenuity with Zerithian strength. He showed them how to anticipate ambushes, set traps, and use their environment as an advantage. Illyra learned quickly, her mind sharp and fearless, and under Marcus's guidance, the palace became a fortress prepared for any attack. Days later, the enemy struck again, this time in force. A coalition of noble houses sent hundreds of warriors, armed with alien weaponry and riding swift sky beasts, to storm the palace. The sky darkened with the shadow of wings, and the ground shook with the charge of beasts. Marcus and Elira stood together on the main balcony, watching as the forces advanced. Marcus's hands clenched into fists, but his mind was calm. "Follow my lead," he said. "We've prepared for this." The battle began with fire and metal clashing. Marcus moved like a whirlwind, striking enemies with calculated precision. Using Zerithian weapons as if they were extensions of his own body, he ducked under claws, dodged blasts, and led counterattacks that confused and routed the invaders. Elira, following his instructions, coordinated the palace's defenses, directing soldiers to positions that maximized their strength. She used her knowledge of Zerithian strategy combined with Marcus's guidance, turning the tide of battle. For the first time, she realized the full extent of Marcus's influence. His courage inspired everyone around him. Hours passed, and the enemy began to falter. Marcus faced the enemy commander, a towering warrior with wings like steel and a face twisted with rage. The fight was brutal. Marcus dodged a swing of a massive blade, rolled across the ground, and struck with a precise kick that sent the warrior crashing into the wall. The commander rose again, but Marcus's relentless determination never wavered. Finally, with a clever trick, Marcus trapped the enemy in a cage of his own making, ending the battle. The palace was safe, for now. Elira ran to Marcus, embracing him tightly. "You've done it again," she whispered. "You've saved us all." Marcus held her, his face weary but smiling. "It's not just me," he said. "It's you, your people, and every soldier who trusted in me. Together we are stronger than any enemy." The Empress approached, her face unreadable. For the first time she spoke softly. "I see it now. The galaxy underestimated humans, underestimated you. Perhaps it is time for Zerithia to see strength in a new light." Elira smiled at her mother, feeling a warmth she had never felt before. "Strength is not just about wings or blood," she said. "It's about courage, heart, and trust. Marcus has all of these, and he has taught me to see them too." The Empress nodded. "Then let the world see what humans can do. Let it see that a princess is not bound by the limits of her own people. Let it see that courage can change the course of history." As the sun set over the crystal towers of Zerithia, Marcus and Elira stood together, looking out over the city. The battle was over, but the war for acceptance, respect, and survival was not. Yet for the first time they felt hope. They had faced impossible odds and survived. They had faced prejudice and hatred and triumphed. Together they were unstoppable. The galaxy was watching, and Marcus Hale, the human who had defied every expectation, was ready to show them what humanity could truly achieve. The palace of Zerithia had survived the first attacks, but the war for acceptance was far from over. Rival houses, humiliated by Marcus Hale's survival of the trial of proving and his victories in the palace, were not willing to accept a human beside Princess Elira. They plotted in secret, amassing fleets, recruiting mercenaries, and forging alliances across the stars. For Marcus and Elira, the coming battle was no longer personal. It was the future of the Empire itself. Elira stood on the balcony of the main tower, her golden eyes scanning the horizon. Her wings, once a source of shame, now trembled slightly in anticipation. Marcus stood beside her, calm and steady despite the tension. His hands were clasped behind his back, his dark eyes watching the skies where enemy ships were beginning to gather. "They're coming," Marcus said softly. "And they've brought everything they have." Elira turned to him. "Do you think we can stop them?" Marcus smiled faintly. "We've survived worse. Not by brute force, but by thinking ahead, by fighting together. We'll win, not because we're stronger, but because we are clever, brave, and united." The enemy fleet appeared first as tiny specks on the horizon, then grew larger, ships filling the sky in an intimidating display. Thousands of warriors descended, ready to claim the princess and defeat the human who had dared to defy tradition. The palace guards stood ready, their weapons gleaming in the fading sunlight. Elira moved among them, her voice clear and commanding. "Remember what Marcus has taught us. Trust your mind, trust each other, and you will survive. We fight for more than ourselves. We fight for the future of Zerithia." The first wave of attackers struck, swooping down on swift sky beasts and firing energy weapons. Marcus led the counterattack, his strategy combining human ingenuity with Zerithian technology. He guided the defenders to use the terrain to their advantage, directing flanking maneuvers and ambushes. Each move was calculated, precise, and deadly. Illyra herself fought alongside Marcus, using her wings to scout and coordinate attacks. Though her arm was weak, her mind was sharp, and her decisions turned the tide of battle again and again. She realized the truth Marcus had shown her. Strength was not only in muscle or perfection, it was in courage, creativity, and unity. The enemy commander, a massive Zerithian warlord with wings black as night, landed at the palace gates, his face twisted with rage. "Give me the princess, human," he shouted. "Or die trying." Marcus stepped forward. "You will not take her," he said calmly. "Not today, not ever." The duel began. The warlord was powerful, swinging his blade with the force of a hurricane. Marcus dodged, rolled, and countered, using every trick he had learned during the trial of proving. He used the environment, falling beams, walls, and even the wind to outmaneuver his opponent. Illyra watched, her heart pounding. The human who had faced impossible trials was now fighting for the future of her people. She felt pride and awe in equal measure. He was not perfect, he did not have wings like the others, but his courage and cleverness shone brighter than any armor or weapon. The warlord struck again, and this time Marcus was hit, staggering backward with a deep cut along his shoulder. Blood dripped down, but he did not fall. He gritted his teeth, locked eyes with his enemy, and launched a calculated counterattack. Using a swinging beam, he knocked the warlord off balance, sending him crashing to the ground. The enemy commander struggled, but was finally captured by palace guards. The first wave of attackers, seeing their leader defeated, faltered. Marcus seized the moment. He led a bold charge, striking at the remaining enemy forces with precision and intelligence. Zerithian soldiers, inspired by Marcus's bravery, followed his lead. Each move was coordinated, each strike effective. The attackers began to retreat, confusion spreading through their ranks. Illyra soared above the battlefield, her wings carrying her swiftly from point to point. She coordinated the defense, giving orders and ensuring no part of the palace was left vulnerable. Marcus, though wounded, moved tirelessly among the defenders, inspiring courage with every word and action. Hours passed and the enemy forces began to break. Marcus led the final push, rallying the defenders to push the attackers back completely. When the last ship retreated over the horizon, silence fell over the palace. Zerithia had survived. Humanity had triumphed. The Empress approached Marcus, her face a mixture of awe and pride. "You have done what no one believed possible," she said. "Not only have you defended the princess, but you have also shown us the strength of your people." "Perhaps Zerithia has judged humans too harshly." Marcus bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I fight for the princess, for the people, and for what is right. Strength is not measured in wings or blood, but in courage and heart." Illyra walked to Marcus, her hand resting on his shoulder. "You saved us all," she said softly. "Not with perfection, but with your will, your courage, and your mind. I am proud to stand beside you." Marcus looked into her eyes, smiling despite his exhaustion. "And I am proud to stand beside you," he said. "Together we can face anything." The court slowly gathered, murmuring in awe. Humans, once considered weak and inferior, had now proven themselves capable of heroism, strategy, and leadership. The Empress stepped forward and addressed the gathered nobles and citizens. "Today we have witnessed the triumph of courage and unity. Let it be known that strength is not measured by perfection or heritage alone. It is measured by heart, mind, and the willingness to fight for what is right. Marcus Hale, human of Earth, has proven this beyond doubt." The crowd erupted into cheers, some hesitant, some loud, but all recognizing the truth. The human had not only survived impossible odds, but he had changed the perception of an entire empire. Illyra turned to Marcus, her eyes shining. "You are not just my partner," she said. "You are a symbol of hope for all who are judged by what they cannot change. Together we will lead Zerithia into a new era." Marcus squeezed her hand, feeling the weight of their shared responsibility, but also the strength of their bond. "Then let's show the galaxy what humans, and those who believe in them, can achieve." Over the following days, the Empress worked to stabilize the empire. Rival houses were subdued, alliances were strengthened, and the story of Marcus Hale spread throughout Zerithia and beyond. Humans, once considered weak, were now seen as clever, courageous and valuable allies. Marcus had not only earned Elira's hand, but had also elevated the status of his entire species. Elira stood beside Marcus on the palace balcony, looking out at the horizon. The wars had ended, but the future awaited. A future filled with possibility, hope, and unity between Xerithians and humans. "I never thought I could feel pride like this," Elira said softly. "For myself, for my people, and for you." Marcus smiled, looking at the stars beyond. "Then we move forward together. Nothing can stop us now." And so, the legend of Marcus Hale, the human who defied an empire, lived on. His courage, intelligence, and unwavering spirit had not only won a princess, but had also shown an entire galaxy the true strength of humanity. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter that night, as if acknowledging the triumph of a human, and the dawn of a new era where courage, will, and heart mattered more than perfection. For Marcus and Elira, the trials were over. Their partnership, forged in adversity, had proven that humanity could stand tall among the stars, and that the galaxy would never forget the human who dared to believe,